Peace, ladies. Welcome back to the Modern Goddess channel. As you can see from the title of this video, we are going to be talking about ineffective styles of communication. Now, many women struggle when it comes to remaining feminine when there is conflict and when there is a disagreement. And I've already made a couple of videos giving some tips and advice on things that you can do in order to help you with that. This video is about things that you want to absolutely avoid doing. If you do any of these things that I'm going to demonstrate for you in this video, it is going to lead to someone feeling misunderstood. They're going to feel like they're not being heard, like their feelings are not being validated, and overall there just won't be any type of resolution. There won't be any type of problem solving. It's going to just keep happening over and over again. The conversation is going to keep coming up over and over again because nothing is really being resolved during the communication. Okay, so avoid doing these things. And before I get into what these styles of communication are, I do want to share with you some tips about how you can improve with your communication if you're taking like little baby steps. And that is focus on the nonverbal communication first and foremost. A mistake that a lot of women make is they try to jump straight into trying to find the right words to say. Like, how can I word this? How can I explain this to him? And that's good. You want to be able to know what to say and how to express yourself. But you got to understand most communication is nonverbal. And if you do not get the body language and the facial expression right first and foremost, then your words will mean absolutely nothing. And I hate to say it like that, but oftentimes, and many women can relate to this, you don't even get a chance to really say what it is you want to say because your face and your body has already spoken for you. Because it really does. And you don't want this to relay the wrong message. So you want to get this straight. And it's very hard to be aggressive and forceful and all of that when you have mastered being at ease and calm in your body. When you have mastered having a gentle face, it's kind of hard to, for people to misconstrue your message. So you want to make sure you get this straight first. And then after this, go straight into focusing on tone. Again, body language, facial expression, then tone, and then trying to find the right words to say. Okay, don't skip the most important part. This is actually going to be a lot more important. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into some of these ineffective styles of communication. The way I'm going to explain this to you is breaking down a few of the lack of feminine styles of communication, toxic styles of communication, toxic feminine styles of communication, and immature feminine styles of communication, which unfortunately a lot of women think that immature feminine is the way to communicate, but it absolutely isn't. The best way to remember what lack of feminine means is that you're just overly masculine. There is just a lack of feminine energy. The best way to remember toxic femininity is when you are in your feminine energy or you're trying to disguise masculine energy as femininity. You're using your feminine energy with ill intent. Right? You're trying to harm with it. You're trying to sabotage with it. You're trying to make the other person feel bad with it, but you're still trying to compose yourself in a feminine manner. And then when it comes to immature feminine, the best way to remember this is that everybody else benefits from your femininity, everyone but you. All right, so let's get into the lack of feminine. There are actually 4 styles of lack of feminine communication. I'm only going to break down 3 because these are the most ineffective. First, of course, is going to be aggressive. Now, when you have the aggressive communication style, you are going to be loud. You're going to be yelling over the other person. Your face is probably going to be frowned up. Your body language is all going to be all wild and hectic. You might clap your hands, wave your finger in the other person's face, doing a whole bunch of this. Sometimes you're like asserting yourself and positioning yourself in a very intimidating or threatening manner. Even if it's not intimidating or threatening to the other person, you in your mind think that that's what you're doing, like you're trying to do that because you're angry. And the reason why is because you're listening for and responding only to the things that offend you. They're saying 1,000 things. They might have said 4 offensive things, and that's only thing you heard, right? You're only responding to the things that trigger you, the things that make you angry, and so now you want the other person to feel your anger and your frustration, and you're not really receiving what is being said. You're not really trying to understand what's being said, and you're not even necessarily in defense mode in this moment. You're on full-blown attack mode. You're being very combative. You're being very forceful. You're in their face. You're loud again. So that's going to be the aggressive style. As you can already tell, I'm sure that I don't need to really break down why that is ineffective, but you're not really hearing them. They're not really hearing you. There is not going to be a solution if you're just yelling and trying to upset the other person, is really what you're doing in that moment. The second style of lack of feminine communication is when you're going to be dismissive avoidant, and you're being dismissive and you're being kind of cold. All right, this is where all the liveliness, all of the emotion, all of the bubbliness, all of the love, all of the affection, all of the nurturing, all of the empathy, all of that is gone. You are very insensitive in this moment. You are apathetic. So when someone is talking to you, it might look like this. Yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, I heard you. Okay, well, I said I'm sorry. What you want me to do? Yeah, okay. Yeah, fine. Sure, whatever. It's like you just are communicating with the other person that you really don't want to be having this conversation, and it can be more harmful than being aggressive, actually, because it tells the other person that you couldn't care less about their feelings. Like, you just don't care that whatever it is they're trying to communicate to you or express to you about probably something that you did, you're telling them that you don't care, that you hurt them. You don't care how they're feeling in that moment. You could care less about fixing the problem. You just want them to shut up, is basically what that energy is telling the other person. It is very cold. It's very rigid. It's, again, when you're responding with like one or two words, and again, the facial expression is just, there's nothing there. It's just like, yeah, there's usually a lot of shoulder shrugging during that time. Sometimes you aren't even facing the person. You're avoiding eye contact. You might be in your phone or looking in the mirror while they're talking, like you're just being disrespectful on purpose. It's like very subtle disrespect, but it's still loud disrespect because it's disrespectful, but you're not being loud and aggressive. You're just being very cold. All right, so that is going to be the second. And then, of course, this is going to be ineffective because this person doesn't feel heard. They don't feel like their feelings are being validated. You're not being warm. You're not being loving or anything like that. So you're not in the feminine space that you need to be in. The third style of lack of feminine communication that is very ineffective is when you are in lawyer mode. Now, lawyer mode, the thing about it is that you don't necessarily have to be loud and aggressive to be in lawyer mode. You can actually be very proper, and you can be very articulate, and you can really have your stuff together. You're making point after point after point, but that's the thing. You have a lot of rebuttals. With aggressive communication, you're listening and responding to the things that offend you. With lawyer mode, you're listening and responding only to the things that you disagree with, the things that you want to correct about what the other person has said. This is when you're being argumentative. This is when you're being very competitive and you're trying to win the argument. You are trying to make a case. You're just trying to prove a point, and you're not really trying to understand what the other person is saying. They could say 1,000 things right, again, and you heard 3 things that they said wrong, or they misquoted or something, and that's the only thing you're focusing on. And so you might come in and be like, well, first of all, let me correct you here. This is what I said, and this is a fact, and this is this, and this is that. And you're like, you're really on point. You're really good at it. But again, it lacks compassion. And unfortunately, a lot of men make the mistake of telling their women, you need to just remove your emotions, during conflict, when there's a disagreement or something, and then they'll get upset when she ends up being in lawyer mode, because in that moment she has completely removed her emotions. She's not thinking about how she feels, and she's certainly not sensing how he feels. She's only focused on winning the competition or competing to win the argument and just making her point with facts and facts only. And it's going to seem very cold and rigid, and it might not be dismissive, because she's going to be in the conversation. She's going to be very much so involved and alert and aware of what's going on, but she is there's no emotion in it at all. It's just straight up, I'm about to win this argument. You're wrong, I'm right. And you say this one thing and he says that, and then you come right back with the next thing. You got something to say for everything he says, right? That's lawyer mode. And nobody's really being heard. No one's really trying to understand anyone. There's no feelings. And so that is very ineffective when you are doing that, because there's not going to be a solution. All right, you're just going to keep going back and forth. It's kind of like a tit for tat thing is what happens. Okay, so that is lack of feminine. The next is going to be toxic feminine. There are 3 different styles of toxic feminine communication. I'm only going to focus on 2 that are the most ineffective. First, of course, is when you're being very manipulative. There are so many things that fall under the umbrella of manipulative communication. It could be playing dumb, and you try to have this fake innocence, like you don't understand what's going on, like you need him to explain something to you for the 5th, 1000th, 100th, millionth time. Like you just act like you don't know any better. You act like you don't know how what you did was a problem. You act like you are unaware of why he is so upset. You're just like, oh, but I don't get it. What did I do? Like, but why is that a problem though? You try to make him feel like he's overreacting, you know? You also try to act like you don't remember what you did or what you said when you know you remember. You just don't want to hold yourself accountable. That's the main thing with the toxic feminine, is just doing her best to avoid accountability. So it may look like, well, I don't remember saying that. When did I do that? No. But then you can remember everything that he did. That is very much so toxic feminine. That's very manipulative. Another form of manipulative communication is when you try to play the victim. And what will happen is he'll bring to light something that you did, and then you're like, well, I wouldn't have done that if you wouldn't have did this. Or you might try to bring out a sob story about your past. Well, I'm sorry, no, I can't help it. I was raised like this, and this happened to me when I was a little girl, and I still don't know how to. And you do all of these things until it gets to the point where now he is like, oh no, it's okay. You don't cry, don't feel bad. You know, you have the crocodile tears, and now you find out he's apologizing, or now you have kind of escaped accountability. You kind of got a free pass by playing that victim. All right, so that is also toxic feminine. I'm trying to make him, again, feel like, trying to guilt trip him, or trying to make him feel like he doesn't know what he's talking about, trying to make him, pretty much just insulting his intelligence, trying to make him feel like he is forgetting things, trying to make him feel like he's tripping, like he doesn't know what he does know, try to make him feel like what he remembers is absolutely inaccurate. That is all toxic feminine manipulative communication. And if you do this, you know that you do this, and you do it because you've gotten away with it for so long. So that's that one. Now, when it comes to the other style, and that is going to be the passive aggressive. Passive aggressive is when, again, you are kind of disguising insults and masculinity as though it were feminine. So you might be making little jabs, like everything you say is like a little subtle insult, but you're trying to keep a really sweet face and a sweet tone when you're saying it. So you're saying this, well, that's not my problem. Maybe if you would do something, you would do this differently, it wouldn't have happened that way. Or it's not my fault that you don't know how to do that, baby. You know, like you're trying to be sweet and so, but you have a very nasty, nice attitude. You're definitely being rude. You're trying to upset him, but you're trying to put sugar on top of it in hope that he won't get upset, you know? And it's all just passive aggressive, and it's very ineffective because it's going to upset him. It's like poking a bear and hoping that it won't attack you at some point. It's going to attack. So don't do that. You know, that's definitely going to be toxic feminine. So the passive aggressive energy, and then the manipulative, that's toxic feminine. And then, of course, immature feminine. Like I said, immature feminine is when everyone else benefits from your femininity except for you. I'm going to address all 3 of the styles of immature feminine. Number 1, of course, is going to be the timid. And this is when you're really, really shy and you're afraid to just come out and say what it is you want to say. And the problem with this is that the other person is going to get irritated. They're going to be like, come on, just spit it out. Just say what you got to say, because you holding back and not saying what you really mean, what you really feel, what you really want. You're not really making that request. They're not going to be able to help you. They're not going to be able to solve the problem if they don't really know what the problem is. And it can be very frustrating and irritating. You're just like, well, I don't know how I want to say this. Well, okay, maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't know. It's like you're walking on eggshells. Like you're just so afraid you're going to offend the other person or upset the other person, so you say nothing. That is very ineffective. Nothing is going to be resolved like that. Okay? The other style of immature feminine communication is going to be when you kind of blame yourself for everything. It is when you really take a lot of shame. It is when you punish yourself for everything else. And this is when you're just being overly emotional, and that is the style. It's just the overly emotional style of communication. When someone comes to you, the way this looks like is somebody might come to you and say, well, this is an issue. I have a problem with what you did, or just try to correct you or hold you accountable to something. And then you might break down in tears and really punish yourself and be like, oh, I'm never going to get this right. Oh, maybe you should just find somebody else. I'm never going to be good enough for you. Now, toxic feminine can do this manipulative as well, with the crocodile tears. But the thing about the immature feminine is she really truly believes that about herself. There's so much insecurity there. And so she really believes, okay, he'd just be better off with someone else. And you start punishing yourself as if they're not trying to communicate with you in order to get things better. You take it to a whole nother level, to where you're just so emotional, where you're just so focused on the problem. You're just so focused, you're so stuck in defeat. You're unable to come up out of that and see he's trying to help you. He's trying to work with you by telling you what you can do differently, but you're taking it and you're wearing it like shame, like he's trying to beat you or attack you or something, when that's not even what's happening. Another way that the emotional way is ineffective is you might just bust out crying and he didn't even really get a chance to say what he needs to say. Like you're just so full of emotion, you can't really hear what the solution is. You're focused on the problem and you just feel attacked all of the time. Okay, and you're really hard on yourself. So that is going to be a problem. And the last style of immature feminine communication is the people pleasing, and which is accommodating. When you are very accommodating, this seems, of course, it is very feminine, but what usually happens is that it will always lead to resentment, because you are not being heard. You're just saying whatever the other person wants to hear. You're saying whatever is going to make them happy, even if it's something you disagree with, even if it's something that's harmful to you. You're just going to say, okay, yeah, if whatever you want, babe. Yeah, sure, I agree. Yeah, okay. And then it leads to resentment, because you're not getting what you want. Your desires are not being met. Your feelings are not being heard. You don't have a voice. You're just sitting there just yeah, sure, and just people pleasing. Okay, and energy isn't being reciprocated, and it's not effective, because the solution is, the problem is going to keep happening over and over again, because you're not happy. It's just going to keep coming up. And then it usually also ends up leading to passive aggression. Eventually, when you keep accommodating, eventually you get tired of it, you get frustrated, but you don't want to be too aggressive, so you just end up being passive aggressive, having that nasty nice attitude, right? So these are all things that you want to avoid: lack of feminine communication, toxic feminine communication, and then of course the immature feminine communication, which is feminine, but it benefits everyone but you, and it usually always leads to your needs not being met, no real solution, and all of these are like that. So make sure that you are not doing these things. Try to find my other videos. I'll leave a link somewhere so that you can remember what tips and advice you can implement in order to have more effective and proper communication. All right, make sure you visit my website, SaraLenaCoaching.com, if you would like to book any sessions with me to help you improve with your feminine communication. Peace and much love.